Welcome back, everybody, to the Bitcoin Business Bureau. I'm your host, as always, LitecoinLeader. I know I said I was going to take some time off, but I found some really interesting stories I just needed to share before the end of the year. So I mentioned the one about Turkey and what's going on there with cryptocurrency. I did that yesterday. I'll link that video up here. But today I'm going to talk about Cliff High and one of his more recent videos. You can find on BitChute. I'll allude to that in a minute. I can't give you a direct link. Thank you, YouTube. But you can get the idea. And I think it's important to talk about, and I'll probably air it today and tomorrow. So maybe if you see it tomorrow, it's actually today, which will be cause some confusion. So I'm probably going to air that twice this week. We'll see. But it's really important to talk about what Cliff High mentioned in his December 23rd video. So first, I'm going to share some of the links and talk about them as I overlay, and I'll come back to give my synopsis. So let me start by sharing my screen. Let's see. We're going to share screen. I think it's yes. So first thing is, this is the video from Cliff High. It's from December 23rd. It's called Quack Up Wu. And it's well worth a watch. I think the middle part is the crux of it, but he talks about Veritasium. He talks about Reggie Middleton and how the SEC is dealing with that and why they still need him. He also talks about the end of the current system with Federal Reserve notes. And then he also talks about what our 45th president was saying recently about cryptocurrency and how that matters. So I'm going to jump back and forth. Let's talk. I'm going to share the quote real quickly here. 45th president, I need to be careful about how I say this. He mentioned cryptocurrency is a very dangerous thing and that he likes to have the dollar. So we're going to get to that in a moment. And we're also going to share the definition of the dollar in a moment. So let me stop sharing for a moment and let me come back here. Okay. So I think most everybody's familiar with one of these, the $20 bill. Everybody thinks it's a dollar bill. $20 bill is what we all call it. But if you look right at the top of this, read across the top, you'll see Federal Reserve Note. The Federal Reserve is not a government agency. It is a private entity that's been contracted to print these and control the supply of these over time. That's why the Fed chair is also a private job. It's not a government appointment, even though there's talk about that. But anyway, the Federal Reserve is a private entity, and these are not the actual dollars, because the dollar is actually defined in the Constitution. Let me go back and share one more time, and then I'll come back and talk about everything, because it's going to be easier that way. So when I go back to 45th president, when he says, I like to have the dollar, I want to bring up this other site, and I'll leave this in the link. It's from Mises.org, and it's a definition of the dollar, and it's been defined in many early days of the U.S. They defined the dollar. So the first thing they say right away, this is from 2010. It says the Federal Reserve dollar is not a constitutional dollar. The constitutional dollar was defined in the Constitution about the number of how much silver can be created into a coin. And then the Coinage Act of 1792 set the ratios of silver and gold. So if you go through here, you can see that, let's see, the United States has historically minted gold coins and silver coins. It regulated their value, how much weight they contain in order to bring the meaning of a gold dollar conforming to silver, which contains 371.25 grams of pure silver. This too was constitutionally mandated. So they mandated how much there was. And then if I scroll down a little bit further, not only do they mandate the size of a silver equal silver coin in the Coinage Act of 1792, they also brought into legal equivalents 371.25, 10 times as much silver to number of grains of gold. So the ratio was 15 to 1. So this is where we could have come up with a historical number and a baseline of silver to gold of 15 to 1. Now, if you go and look at the price of silver to the Federal Reserve note dollar, it will match somewhat of this grains, because it's about 3/4 of an ounce of silver equals $1. So if you do the math, figure it all out and know there's 14 ounces, you basically can work out that, $20-30 for silver makes sense. But by the definition of the dollar and these ratios, what you have to do all this math and figure it all out, silver should be 15 to 1 gold. Gold is, so if I go quickly over to silvertogold.com, you can get the price of both silver and gold. And you can see gold is 1,800, silver is 23. That is nowhere close to 15 to 1. That's more like 80 to 1. So if I was 2020, it would be 100 to 1. You get the idea. It's about 20-ish to, it's about 80 to 1, roughly, silver to gold. So silver compared to gold is cheap because the ratio should be 15 to 1, according to the Constitution. So if you go back to talking about number 45, do you believe that he's a constitutionalist? Yes, he is. So do you believe that he says very, very clearly, and he said it many times, I like to have the dollar. Why would he say I like to have the dollar? Why wouldn't he say I like having the dollar? I like to have the dollar means that what we currently have is not the dollar. The dollar, as defined in the Constitution, is not what we have. We have the Federal Reserve note, which is what everybody thinks is the dollar, but not really. So what he would like is to go back to the Constitution, which he speaks about a lot, and say, this is what we should be doing. So that's actually another dangerous thing, because it could be dangerous to the Federal Reserve. So if I stop this real quick and I just talk for a moment, so that why this is important. Language is important, understanding what he's really saying, because sometimes, as Cliff says, when you look back, like sometimes what our 45th president says at the time doesn't sound right. It seems like it's conflicting with his beliefs or conflicting what we think is true. But later on, when we look back, it's like, oh yeah, that does make sense. You know, it's just like the whole bleach thing. We'll get into it. I think you know what I'm talking about. Didn't make sense at the time, kind of makes sense now if you do your homework. Anyway, moving past that topic very quickly. Back to the dollar. The former president, or number 45, is constitutionalist. The Constitution defines how much a dollar should be in terms of silver, and in association and ratios, gold as well. So if we go back to a system he would like to have, where we use silver and gold as the basis, we could be looking at revaluation and at the end of a central banking system that can print these Federal Reserve notes, like they're going out of style. So this, as we've lost over 95% of its buying power since it was created, is accelerating its death very quickly, as we've printed more than double of what these are in the last 2 years. So more of these exist now today than ever existed before 2 years ago, ever. So we doubled the currency supply. This is not money. Money holds its value. This is currency. This is fleeting, and every fiat eventually dies. So could this be the mark of the end of the fiat system, the end of the Federal Reserve, the end of central banking? I think that story from Turkey is looking a little bit prescient, as is Cliff, as usual. So if you have questions about what I've said today, I know it could prompt a lot. Leave comments down below, #dollar. Leave your questions there. And of course, if you're a Patreon, I'll get to those first. And if you're going to join over at Crypto Confidential starting February 1st, I think that's really going to be the place to be to talk about this and other very, very meaningful topics. So, a lot said today. I'm going to close the drill in the bureau, say one more time, follow the leader, and I'll see you next time. Take care.